The great set of lines, and good to see you. I've played football out at the Perth Football Oval many years ago. Lovely place. Now, on this matter of censure and seeking of leave, Mr Deputy Speaker, it is crucially important that we understand that a censure motion is a shot across the bow of the minister. It is a message to the minister that the crisis, and again, sometimes the word crisis is thrown around too much, but it's absolutely clear that there is a crisis in housing in Tasmania. And the censure motion and the seeking of leave to debate this as a matter of urgency is not only as a response to what the sector is saying, what the community is saying, what the government's own members are saying, but it's a message to the minister that business as usual is no longer acceptable, that they have been in government now for 5 years, that this minister has been a minister for over a year, and the situation has become demonstrably worse. Demonstrably worse. And you don't take our view for that, Mr Deputy Speaker. You take the view of Tascos Chief Executive Kim Goods, who said this is now a crisis that requires leadership and a strategic approach that moves beyond the current business-as-usual options and initiatives. And in the editorial in the Mercury today, I mean, this is the head of the Council of Social Services in Tasmania. And essentially we had the member who just resumed his seat, basically got up, called this a stunt. So the issue of housing, he called it a stunt and said we're getting on with the job. But the sector is saying your job is business as usual, and it's not good enough. The reason why we need to debate this motion as censure motion as a matter of urgency, as members, local members of our community representatives, housing and health are the two major issues that come through our doors in our electorate offices. I don't think there is a day that goes by where where an issue of housing is not raised, and we know housing is fundamental. It is absolutely fundamental to people's lives. It starts a slippery slope. If you cannot put a roof over your head, how can the kids get to school? How can they go to school in a condition, in being clean, being happy, being loved and comforted in a home, being able to have food in their belly, to sit and learn? If they don't have housing, if people can't get to work, people can't get around their community, if you can't housing is fundamental to people's human rights and their dignity to live in a community with a level of dignity that allows them to conduct themselves and have a fulfilling life. If we as a community cannot provide a roof over people's head that need it, if we cannot do that, we are creating so many other issues across our community, not for that day that they can't find shelter, not for that week, but for years to come. There are many people who find themselves in circumstances through no fault of their own. No fault of their own. And it has been, since the Depression era, the role of government to intervene and to say, we are not going to judge you for the circumstances you are in. We are going to provide you with shelter so that you can get back on your feet and get into a situation where you can make better decisions and there are more options and choices in front of you. If we as a community cannot say we do that, we have failed. All of us have failed in this place. And it is clear, you even have organisations like the Property Council who came out yesterday and said housing is the #1 issue in our community. Housing is the #1 issue in our community. And it's not just us. It's not just us saying that there needs to be urgent assistance. You're seeing it in virtually all corners of the state. There are people in dreadful circumstances, heartbreaking circumstances. And I'm not saying this minister doesn't care about it. I'm not saying that at all. We're not saying that at all. But this censure motion is a message to him that he's got to do more than feel concerned about it. We need action. And the actions of this government to this point are not enough. It has got worse in the terms of this government. When the Hodgman government came to power in 2010, it inherited a public housing wait list that was the lowest in a decade. But the latest figures from December of last year show that applications have since tripled to more than over 3,200 families on the housing register. Around 75% of those are high priority, and the average time to house priority applicants has now blown out from 20 weeks to 56 weeks, and we heard by the member for Clark, to 60 weeks. Walk in the shoes of people who are the victims of a lack of housing. Walk in the shoes of those people, the decisions that they have to make to get their kids to school. Find ways, whatever way they can, to give their children and their family a life with dignity. And as a community, we need to do better. This is not a no-confidence motion in the minister. He has had 15 months. This is a censure motion because what he has been saying in the budget that's been produced is manifestly inadequate to deal with the crisis. And on questions today, he was almost surprised that winter is upon us. Last year, straight after the election, before this House was formed, the Premier brought a crisis meeting together, a housing summit. Things have changed since last year, for the worst. They've not improved. And we're now going through our second winter. So this censure motion and the seeking of leave is an urgent matter. It's getting colder. People are getting desperate. The plans that the government have announced are inadequate to deal with the short-term crisis. We've heard a member, and it's not just the opposition, the member that resumed his seat called it an opposition stunt. Well, here's a member of the government, Ms Hickey, the member for Clark. Dear God, this is quite, dear God, what has she been doing for the last 15 months I've been in government?